Hi all. In this video we discuss section 26, homomorphisms and factorings. We have a number of theorems in this section. Those theorems are analogous to the theorems which we discussed in the previous session, in which normal groups are discussed, normal subgroups are discussed. So we start with the definition of homomorphism in this session. A map phi from R to R prime. Here R denotes the ring and R prime is another ring. So these are two arbitrary rings. So we define a map phi with the property that phi of A plus B equal to phi of A plus phi of B. This plus stands for the first binary operation of the ring. And we have one more axiom for this or condition for this homomorphism. Phi of AB is equal to phi of A times phi of B. So you might have seen the same definition in the previous section, and we have also discussed some examples. And an interesting example of ring homomorphism is projection homomorphism. So if we have R1, R2, etc., Rn are rings, then the Cartesian product of those rings R1, R2, etc., Rn, that is also a ring. So we can define a map from R1 cross R2 cross etc. Rn to the ith component or ith copy of that Cartesian product, and that is defined as pi I of R1 comma R2 comma etc. Rn, that is Ri, the ith component of this antipole. So this map defines a homomorphism from this Cartesian product of rings to the ith component. So this is called the projection homomorphism. Okay, so this satisfies the conditions for ring homomorphism. That means these two conditions are satisfied by this projection homomorphism. Okay, now next we have properties of homomorphism. In fact, this is the properties of ring homomorphism. We have discussed the properties of group homomorphism. So there are some analogous theorems in this group in this ring homomorphism as well. So we have theorem 26.3. The proofs of some theorems in these sections are omitted in the syllabus itself. So we need not worry about the proofs of this the theorems 26.3, 26.6 and 26.9. So we just discuss the statement of this theorem. Let phi be a homomorphism of a ring R into a ring R prime. Into means that is an arbitrary homomorphism. If this is onto, then that means the codomain of this homomorphism is same as the range of the homomorphism. So we use the term into for an arbitrary homomorphism. So phi is an arbitrary homomorphism from R into R prime. R and R prime are two arbitrary rings. If 0 is the additive identity in R, then phi of 0 is 0 prime. This 0 stands for the additive element of the first ring, and the 0 prime stands for the identity element of the second ring. Okay, so this statement is analogous to the statement that homomorphism maps the identity of the group to the identity of the other group. Say phi of E is equal to E prime. So the same result holds for the rings as well. So the next result is if we choose A belongs to the ring R, then additive inverse of that A is mapped to the additive inverse of phi of A. We have proved phi of A whole inverse equal to phi of A inverse in case of groups. The same thing can be expected in ring homomorphism as well. So phi of minus A is equal to minus phi of A. You can easily prove these things by proving phi of minus A plus phi of A equal to 0. As this phi is a homomorphism, you can combine those things. Phi of minus A plus phi of A is equal to phi of minus A plus A, that will be phi of A. So using phi of 0 equal to 0 prime, you will get this result. So proofs are simple, but we are not going to prove all these things again. Now next we have phi. If S is a subring of R prime R, then phi of S is a subring of R prime. Okay, so we have, suppose we have two rings R and R prime, and the phi is the homomorphism, ring homomorphism from R to R prime, then we know that the additive identity is mapped to the additive identity of R prime, and if A minus A is here, that is the additive inverse of A, then this minus A is mapped to minus phi of A. So the meaning of this is phi of minus A is equal to minus phi of A. And if you have a subring here, say S, then this S is mapped to the subring. That means this is our phi of S. This is also a subring of R prime. Okay, and if you choose a subring here, say S prime is the subring of R prime, then you will get the inverse images of S prime. Okay, so we denote this set as phi inverse of S prime. Okay, this is also a subring of R. Okay, this is same as the correspondence between the subgroups under a homomorphism. That means homomorphic image of a subgroup is subgroup, then inverse homomorphic image of a subgroup is subgroup. So this theorem is analogous to those things. Okay, and one more thing we have to discuss in the ring. This is the contrast from the group theory. If R is a ring with unity, that means 1 belongs to R. That means 1 is the multiplicative identity of the ring R. Okay, then phi of 1 is the unity for, then phi of 1 is the unity of belongs to R, obviously, or it belongs to R prime, obviously, is the multiplicative identity or unity for R prime. Okay, not R prime, phi of R, the image set of this ring. Okay, this is because of we can say that phi of x times phi of 1 will be phi of x itself, because since this phi is a homomorphism, ring homomorphism, using the second property you can write this is phi of x times 1. Since this 1 is the unity of the ring R, then x times 1 equal to x, so this will give phi of x. Now you can say that phi of x times phi of 1 is always phi of x, therefore this phi of 1 is the identity or multiplicative identity. In fact, this is a unity of phi of R. Okay, so this is the content of theorem 26.3. Now we can define kernel of a homomorphism. As we define kernel for a group homomorphism, you can define kernel for a ring homomorphism. So the set is same. Okay, so that is the inverse images of 0 prime, additive identity of R prime. Okay, so the same thing will work here. So this is the kernel. As we consider rings, then we know that R rings under addition is a group. So R plus under or R prime, here we have a map from R to R, be ring homomorphism. We can define this for any arbitrary rings R and R prime. Then this 0 prime denotes the identity element of R prime, additive identity of R prime. So if you choose all the inverse images of that, you will get the kernel of homomorphism, kernel of ring homomorphism. So we are not using multiplicative identity to define the kernel of ring homomorphism, because we can never expect multiplicative identity for all the rings, but this additive identity. Okay, so this is the definition of kernel. You can still prove this kernel is a subring of, okay, subring of R, and kernel satisfies some nice properties that we have discussed in the last sessions of this section, last topics of this sessions. Now we have some property. If H is a kernel of phi, then phi inverse of phi of A. We have already proved in the case of groups, phi inverse of singleton set phi of A is the kernel of a is the left coset of a kernel. So this is AH, which is equal to HA. Okay, if we use this theorem here, we know that R under addition is a group. Okay, R under addition is a group, and phi is a homomorphism from R under addition to R prime under addition. So this addition denotes the first operation of R prime, and this is the first operation of R. Now if we translate this theorem, we will get phi inverse of phi singleton set phi of A. Okay, so this will be AH, the left coset of the kernel. Since here the operation is plus, you write this is A plus H. So this denotes the left cosets of H. Okay, so this plus is the we use this plus because R plus is group with respect to this plus. Okay, this is also same as H plus A. Okay, so this proves theorem 26.5. So you can write the proof of this theorem. The proof of this theorem is not omitted in the syllabus. Therefore, you can write the proof of this theorem by taking the groups. Okay, we can write let R comma and addition multiplication and R prime comma addition multiplication be two rings. Then you can write phi is a, you can bracket this, then you can say that phi is a group homomorphism from R plus to R plus into R prime plus. Okay, so this now you can use the previous theorem proved in the case of groups as this thing, and you can translate this AH by A plus H. Okay, so that proves theorem 26.5. Okay, now we have an interesting corollary. A ring homomorphism phi from R to R prime is a one-to-one map if and only if kernel phi is equal to singleton set 0. Okay, so that we can easily prove here, theorem 26.6. So we have to prove that let phi is 1 1. This phi is 1 1. So you can expect phi of A equal to phi of B implies A equal to B. Okay, now we have to prove that this implies this kernel is singleton set 0. So we start with an element x belongs to kernel phi. So this implies phi of x equal to 0 by definition. But we know that phi of 0 is also 0. This is 0 prime. Phi of 0 is also 0. So we have phi of x equal to 0 prime, which is equal to phi of 0. Therefore, this implies x equal to 0, because phi of A equal to phi of B implies A equal to B. On the other way, if we expect the kernel contain only singleton set 0, we have phi of A equal to phi of B. That implies phi of A minus phi of B equal to 0 prime. That implies this phi of A minus B equal to 0 prime. That implies A minus B equal to 0, because kernel contains only 0. So since this A minus B, the image of A minus B is 0 prime, then A minus B is a member of kernel. Therefore, A minus B is equal to 0. From this you can write A equal to B. So this proves theorem 26.6. Now we can define factor ring. Before we go into define factor ring, we just remember the definition of factor groups. We define factor group using the left cosets of the group. Okay, here we have an underlying group structure, because R, for any ring R plus is a group, so we have a underlying group structure for any ring. Okay, so if this is a ring, then you can take any subgroup or subring of R or subgroup of this. You can define the cosets of H. Okay, if H is a subgroup of R, then you can define set of 4 cosets. Okay, so first of all we have to define the binary operation. In order to make this the collection of all distinct left cosets a ring, first of all we have to define 2 binary operations on here. So we are going to search the results to enable us to define the binary operations, 2 binary operations on this collection of left cosets. Okay, so now we define, now we discuss theorem 26.7. Here we omit the proof of this theorem. So this is analogous to the theorem 14.1 in which we discussed the binary operation or induced operation using coset multiplication. Here we define this plus symbol. We need to define two distinct binary operation on set of all left cosets. So we define plus and multiplication for first and to second binary operation respectively. So a plus h is equal to a plus h plus b plus h is equal to ab plus h, and a plus h into b plus h is equal to ab plus h. So these are two operations. Therefore, this theorem states that let phi be a homomorphism from R to R prime, and h is the kernel of the coset, kernel of the h is the kernel of the homomorphism. Then R by h is a ring. Okay, so cosets, the collection of left cosets of left or right, cosets, distinct cosets of h form a ring called R over h, whose binary operations are defined in choosing the representative elements. That means this is the binary operation, and the product, this is the first binary operation, this is the second one. Okay, also the map mu from R by h to phi of R, defined by mu of a plus h is equal to phi of a is an isomorphism. Okay, so these are the two binary operations that can be defined for any set with set of distinct left cosets of the ring homomorphism, and this map phi mu of a plus h is equal to mu of a plus h is equal to phi of a is also an isomorphism. Okay, so the proofs are omitted, therefore you need not worry about the proof of this theorem. Some examples are discussed after these theorems, so please go through it. And now we have theorem 26.9. So this is also analogous to the theorems on the section 14. So this is in fact analogous to theorem 14.4. Let h be a subring of the ring R. Multiplication of additive cosets. Additive cosets means R under addition is a group. Therefore, we consider only cosets corresponding to the first binary operation. Okay. So the additive cosets of multiplication of additive cosets is well defined by the equation a plus h into b plus h equal to ab plus h. Okay. So we need to worry only about the multiplication, because we know that this h is an additive subgroup, commutative subgroup. Therefore, with respect to addition, this form a abelian group. Okay, R plus is an abelian group. So every subgroup of that abelian group is normal. Therefore, this H form a normal subgroup with respect to addition. Okay, so we need not worry about the group structure of the left cosets. So that obviously true that this H is the left cosets of H form a abelian group. Okay, but we need to define a new operation, say the second binary operation, on the left cosets, on the collection of left cosets. So that should be well defined. Okay, so this theorem says that the characterization for the coset multiplication is well defined. Okay, so we need not worry about the addition. Addition is always well defined because that form a normal subgroup. H form a normal subgroup of R plus. So this multiplication is well defined if and only if these two conditions are satisfied. If you multiply any element of H with an arbitrary element of the ring itself, so that product is also a member of H. Okay, so if we have R here, and if we consider the subring H, okay, this is subring of H, that means we know that H plus is a subgroup, R plus under multiplication is a ring. Now H plus is a subgroup, and if we take any H here and if we take any arbitrary element A, then we can say that AH belongs to H. So if you multiply this H by some A, this AH will be a member of this H itself. Okay. Similarly, if we choose any B, an arbitrary B, then HB, if you multiply B from the right hand side, that is also a member of H. Okay. So if the subring has this property, these two properties, we can say that this coset multiplication is also well defined. Okay. So in order to define a factor ring, we start with a subring H with this property. Then you can define two operations, A plus H plus B plus H equal to A plus B plus H. This is vectorally true. And now this theorem says that A plus H times B plus H equal to AB plus H is also well defined if AH belongs to H and HB belongs to H for all A comma B belongs to R and H belongs to H. If these conditions are satisfied, then these two operations are well defined. Okay, so we start with a subring with this property. Then you can easily consider set of all left cosets of H, and then you can define these two binary operations on that set. Once you define these two binary operations on that set, then that set of all left cosets form a ring. Okay, because you can easily prove that with respect to these two operations, this left cosets A plus H, we denote A plus H instead of H, A belongs to R, form a ring, called factor ring. Okay, factor. So this is the content of theorem 26.9. So still you can avoid the proof, or you need not worry about the proof. Okay, now we call such a subring or subgroup of R. That means N is a subring of R with this property. Okay, subring or subgroup. Okay, if you have subgroup, then if we add these two properties to a subgroup, then that will form a subring. Okay, for a subring we need to get the multiplication closed. So along with a subgroup, along with these two conditions, make this N as a subring, then those type of subgroups are called ideal. Okay, so this is the definition of the ideal. That means in order to define a factor ring, we need to start with a ideal of a ring. Okay, for example, ideal of a ring is 2Z. 2Z is an ideal of Z. Okay, that means if we multiply any element of 2Z, say some 2k, if you multiply any element of 2Z with any element of this Z, if you multiply it with some m, then you can say that this is 2km, that also belongs to 2Z. That means every element of 2Z times any element of Z, that will be an element of 2Z itself. Okay, so this is also true for the other way, m times any even number, that is also an element of 2Z. Okay, so there are some, if we consider m to R, that is set of all matrices over R, then if you consider a collection 0 0 some a b, so this is this a comma b belongs to R, this is a real number, this is a ring and this is a subring. Okay, or subgroup. If you you can easily prove that this is a subgroup under addition. Okay, this is a subgroup under matrix addition. But if you multiply an arbitrary element of M2Z, say XYZ, XYZW, if you multiply an arbitrary element with an arbitrary element of this subset AB, you will get YA here. Whatever be these elements, you can say that if we choose A and Y are non-zero, then this number is non-zero. So this, if we start with this as n, you can never expect that this product is not is an element of n. Okay, because this is a non-zero element. At the same time, if we multiply any element of this subgroup 0 0 AB, if you multiply any element of this with arbitrary element of M to R from the right hand side, you will get the same, you will get the matrix with the same format. 0 0 times XYZ is 0, 0 0 times YW 0, and we have some non-zero entry here. So this will bring the element to n itself. Okay, so in general we can never expect that these two conditions are vacuously true. Okay, sometimes this will be true and sometimes this will be true. What is the meaning of this statement? This statement means A times n belongs to n for all a, and this means n times b belongs to n for all n belongs to n and b belongs to n. Okay, so we can never expect these two conditions simultaneously. So there are rings and subgroups with these two properties. Sometimes the product will be in N, and sometimes that will not does not a member of N. Okay, so if we start with a subgroup along with these two conditions, okay, obviously that will make an subring. So we start with the subgroup, and if we define these two conditions on N, then that quantity is called ideal. Okay, so we use ideals to define factoring. So these are the required conditions for being that product of cosets is well defined. Okay, so we start with we can conclude section 26.3 using these things. Okay, so there are some examples are discussed after this, and after that we have a this is the theorem analogous to 14.5. So this is what we discussed just now with respect to these two operations that will form a ring. Okay, so that is the definition of factoring. So one more thing is remaining in this section, that is the fundamental theorem of fundamental theorem of homomorphism as rings. Okay, so we defined or we discussed the fundamental theorem of homomorphism for groups. Okay, so this is the fundamental theorem of homomorphism for rings. So we have to prove this theorem as well. You can prove this theorem exactly the same way we proved the fundamental theorem of homomorphism of groups. In the syllabus we have omitted the proof of this as well. Okay, so the conclusion is same thing. If I is a homomorphism from R to R prime, and N is the kernel of the homomorphism, then the factoring R over N is isomorphic to phi of R. Okay, the same result has been held for groups. That means phi is a homomorphism from G to G prime, G to G prime, then and K is the kernel of phi is equal to H. Then we have proved that G over H is isomorphic to phi of G. Okay, the same thing hold here. So the only difference is we use rings rather than groups. Okay, so these are the theorems in section 26. Section 26. So with this we can conclude the content of section 26. So there are number of examples and problems are discussed in this section. So please go through it, and in the next class we will discuss the section 27. So that will be the last section of our fourth module. Thank you.